Welcome everyone. We've got a lot to cover today. If you're here for the tobacco use youth prevention curricula, you are in the right place. We will be going from 9 to 11 a.m. today. We are going to be covering a lot of information, but I do have my colleagues here today to help field questions and comments. So let's get started. So if you're new here, just a little bit about the 2B unit here at LACO. We provide support for all 80 LEAs in LA County. What this looks like is building capacity through trainings like the one today. We also provide professional support when it comes to youth vaping on campus, youth engagement, youth and community engagement. And really, all that is just providing support for school districts, wherever it is that they may be on their tobacco use prevention journey. Our unit is made up of 5 people. Mark Hernandez, our program coordinator, is here today. He will be the one fielding your questions and comments in the chat. I am your presenter today. My name is Linnell Lujan. I'm a senior program specialist. With us is our other senior program specialist, Derek Reed, who oversees our Tier 2 grant. Kira McNeely is our senior program activity specialist who does everything that is family, youth, and community engagement. And then, of course, the glue that holds us all together is our division secretary, Jasmine. A little bit of housekeeping. This training is being recorded, so if for some reason you need to step away, or this might be a webinar that you feel might be great to share with a colleague, all of that information in terms of where to see the recording and the slides will be given to you by the end of the week once this webinar is over. Once again, please use the chat to comment, share, and ask questions throughout. We will be having some engagement pieces where you will be asked to participate, so please feel free to utilize the chat box. And just once again, this presentation, any sort of resources, the recording, the slides, any sort of flyers or worksheets that we talk about today will be provided to you later in an email along with our end of webinar survey. So today we're going to cover, again, a lot of things, but we're really going to get into depth about the curriculums that we have to share today and then how to use them. We're going to start very, very briefly with the youth tobacco landscape, just basically why are we doing this work? If for some reason you are looking for a more in-depth on that type of information, once again, you can visit our YouTube where we actually gave a webinar about a couple of weeks ago on youth tobacco use on campus, where we go over data, we go over the 101 of vaping. Today, we're going to go over it very quickly. We'll go into California policy and health framework alignment of some of these curriculums and how you can fit this work into your core classes. We will go over the actual curricula and some of the pros of each program. And then we'll talk about the implementation and application within your classrooms. As always, we will finish with resources and next steps in terms of what our office has to offer you in support besides these trainings. So let's go over our objectives really quickly. We're here today to go over and understand current youth tobacco use trends. We will look and explore some of the evidence-based curricula. We'll specifically be looking at Stanford Reach Lab's 2 different curriculas, their vaping and their cannabis. And then we will be looking at Catch My Breath. We'll also be looking at connecting the curricula to the California Health Education Framework. And then finally, identifying strategies for classroom and school-wide implementation. So a little brief overview about youth vaping. Again, please feel free to visit our YouTube page where we did a 90-minute webinar more in depth on this. But what we're seeing in terms of youth vaping is nationally, the National Youth Tobacco Survey of 2024, which is the most recent report, has reported that 7.8% of high schoolers are current users. So these are not students who just tried and then never did it again. These are students who are current users. That can also be possibly translated into either addicted or on the verge of becoming addicted. Middle schoolers, 3.5% are current users. When it comes to California's youth tobacco survey of 2023, which again is the most recent report out of this entity, high schoolers in California are currently using at 5.9%, whereas middle schoolers are 2.5%. To get it a little bit more narrow, when we're talking about LA County, seventh graders are currently using at 3%. 4% of ninth graders are current users, and 6% of 11th graders are current users. And I think it's really, really important to kind of look at it in a micro lens because California is kind of an outlier. California is constantly the one state who is finding lots of success when it comes to youth prevention with tobacco and vaping. And so when we're looking at the national numbers, we can't really gauge those compared to our state and even our county numbers. So it's nice to see what the national average is versus our state and our county. If you're looking for more in-depth and more narrowed down, you can definitely look at your chick survey or whatever data collection piece that you use for school climate data collection. Some school districts use Panorama, some use their own survey, but that will give you a little bit more of an indication of your local numbers. So another concern is the health impacts. Our biggest priority is the developing brain of teenagers. There's tons of research that tells us that these substances are highly addictive to teen brains as their brains are developing. And it's even especially more susceptible to addiction when those brains are experiencing stress. One thing we find is that students are wildly misinformed about the health risks and the health concerns when it comes to vaping, cannabis, tobacco, nicotine. Um, and usually in the work that we do, we see students, one, being shocked and surprised at some of the information about the health risks. But students are also sometimes a little scared about it. They didn't realize that some of these substances cause the problems that they do. And it's not just, lung concerns, it's about their brain. Also, students think that vaping helps their stress and helps their anxiety. But what they don't realize is that it usually acts as a very temporary band-aid fix, and it actually increases their anxiety and their depression long term. So, once again, we go over this in our in-depth webinar, but a lot of the questions are, why do students use? What is causing them to use? And there's three different factors here. You have the personal, which is factors within itself. Students are trying to, self-medicate to fix depression, anxiety, sadness, isolation. Um, and that can be something that students are not equipped to deal with when it comes to coping skills or making healthier choices. The interpersonal factors are factors between people. So peer pressure, wanting to fit in, making friends, their access at maybe parties or when they hang out with other people. And then there's the social environment or their community. These are factors within local communities and beyond. So, how many smoke shops are currently around that student's school or home? How many advertisements are they encountering on their social media page? How many characters or musicians are they seeing smoking and vaping in movies and music videos? How many billboards and advertisements are they seeing when they take the bus to school? How much access are they getting and how much are they being shown without even probably noticing it, right? And so these are all the types of factors and social cultural drivers as to why students might use. When doing this work, we also want to take into consideration equity considerations. We know that tobacco affects vulnerable adults, as you can see here in this infographic, and the same is true for our youth. In fact, 3 in 10 LGB youth currently use electronic vapor products, which is 25% higher than their heterosexual counterparts. More than half of LGB youth have tried e-cigarettes, and transgender students use at a rate of 16.6%. Students with low family influence use at 12.5%, which again, if you remember our numbers from previously, this is extremely higher than the other percentages. Transgender youth of color use vape products at a higher rate than their cisgender and white counterparts. Students who report severe psychological distress use tobacco at much higher rates, which is 4.2%. And so we know that our students are at higher risks given some of these vulnerable groups, student groups. Youth who receive mostly Fs had an alarming high tobacco use at 27.2%, right? And so we also know that in terms of advertising, that advertisements are not only geared towards youth and children, but we see that menthol is primarily advertised towards Black and African American communities. Um, and so the tobacco companies are really targeting on these vulnerable groups. So that's going to bring us to our frameworks. We're going to look a little bit at California policy in terms of ed code, and then also how this work fits into the health education framework. Very briefly, once again, we go over this in our youth vaping on campus webinar, which we kind of call our 101. But when it comes to the California Ed Code, uh, remember that the Ed Code is very clear. Students may not possess, use, or sell tobacco, nicotine, or cannabis products on school grounds. It prohibits the possession, the use, or the sale of these products. When it comes to discipline, Ed Code requires schools to ensure consequences are appropriate, that they are fair, and that they're educational, so that they're not just punitive, right? We want students to learn from their decisions and hopefully make better decisions in the future, rather than just suspending, sending them home where they will probably vape even more because now there's no supervision, and then just expect them to come back to class fixed, right? The focus has really shifted from simply suspending students towards providing prevention education, counseling, cessation support. The goal is to keep students in the classroom and learning while still addressing the behavior. This one-page guidance on ed code and substance use is available out of our office. If he hasn't done so already, Mark will be dropping a link in the comment section. This will cover tobacco use, cannabis use, opioids, and alcohol. And it's just a very, very quick kind of guidance on what ed code says in certain situations given those substances. So let's talk about the health education standards. I wanted to highlight the health education standards and the framework, and how that ties into alcohol, tobacco, and other drug education, and where the connection is with 2P work, and where that can be found and where it can be used in the classroom. Remember that education is the best prevention, and that's really what today's webinar is all about, right? Is that first tier prevention work. The California Health Education Standards provides clear descriptions of what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. Back in the just say no era, young people were told to say no without any explanation. All it was full of was scare tactics, and in the hopes that young people would just say no, and that's it. The day's over, right? They said no, they stayed away. Um, but what it actually did was it didn't explain why or even how. And so in replacement of that were a lot of scare tactics, which is where a lot of misinformation also comes from, right? So we wanted to learn from this just say no era, and provide students with the skills on how to just say no and provide them with the explanation of why they should say no. And this is where the health standards come into play. What you see on the screen right now is basically describing in simple terms what the standards describe as our what, and then what the standards are as how we do it. The California Health Education Framework describes how to implement our content standards. With this particular slide, you see on the left-hand side is a list. It lists the high school standard in health education. The right-hand side is a sample from the framework and a short description of what the learning of this standard could look like in the classroom environment through what is known as a photo voice activity. Before we dive deeper into the standard, just to be clear, ATOD stands for alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. So let's look deeper at this. With this particular standard, students are expected to be able to explain healthy alternatives to alcohol, tobacco, and other drug use. So, how can we do that? Through something called a photo voice activity. Today, we're going to hear from other curriculum options out there, like the Stanford Toolkit and Catch My Breath. That's the how we do this. The what is the requirement from the standard. And the framework talks about how to implement the curriculum and what we're going to hear more about from those curriculum options in a bit. This slide shows the very specific skills that students should learn. You'll see at the bottom essential concepts. Think of that as the information, the content. That's the knowledge, that's the data. Those are the facts about health education content areas. And as you move up, the healthy literacy model becomes more complex and more sophisticated skills. So, analyzing influences, accessing valid information, interpersonal communication, decision making, goal setting, practicing health enhancing behaviors, and health promotion. Those are all the skills that will be paired up with the central concepts. Let me explain it a different way. The skills are the same. It's the content that changes, whether we're talking about alcohol, tobacco, vaping, whether or not we want to consume a Monster Energy drink or an Elf bar. We have to understand the facts about those products, but then we need to incorporate other skills to put the content information into play. This model communicates how healthy literacy advances through 8 overarching health education content standards. And like I said prior, standard 1 is the essential concept at the bottom of the module, and standard 8 is the health promotion at the top. As you can see, as you advance through this ladder, if you will, the higher you go, the more advanced, and it increases the complexity. But Also, the skills require a little bit more sophistication. Here, you'll see all of the content areas that are included and that are required in health education. I highlighted the alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs because I think that's really important to reiterate the importance of these skill developments. These skills are very crucial. Again, we in the no, just say no era, you were really seeing that first level of just say no. But we did not provide students with the reasons why, the skills of how to do that. Um, and so that's really what we want to do. We can't just provide them with, hey, vaping is dangerous, or elf bars are the most common um, device used among youth, right? Sure, that information is, while true and important, um, students need more than just that information to make healthy decisions. That information alone doesn't provide students with the ability to make healthy decisions upon their own health and well being. So we need to provide them with the skills and the development of each of those skills in order to make healthy decisions. Here in this slide, it shows the content area by grade level. The health education content addressed in each grade level is easily viewed in this chart, and it's available with the health education content standards as well as the framework on the LACO website and the CDE website. To help us with the quality and the depth of health instruction, some health content areas are not recommended for every grade level. Districts are encouraged to add content areas for additional grade levels depending on the local health priorities. So, this part is really important to note because you'll see in fifth grade, alcohol, tobacco, and other drug education is not traditionally taught in fifth grade. So, what's important to note is it can be taught in fifth grade if there is a local need or a local health priority. In our offices, we are seeing a lot more vaping in the elementary school levels. We have elementary schools reaching out to us who are telling us they need support because they have a huge vaping issue, particularly in the fifth and fourth grade levels. And so while um, tobacco, alcohol, and other drug education is not required in fifth grade, perhaps it needs to be an educational piece in fifth grade to meet that local health priority. Another way to look at this is you'll see that sexual health is not taught in kindergarten through fourth grade because it's not required. It's not necessary for that to be taught until fifth grade because that's when the recommended puberty class is taught. To kind of summarize a little bit about the content area by grade level, the health education standards represent the minimum requirements for comprehensive health education. For today, we're going to focus on the alcohol, tobacco, and other drug lens. And as you can see, they are the standards for ATOD in grades kindergarten, second, fourth, sixth, middle school, and high school. If there is a local need and a local health priority, you are able to teach that in grades 1 and grades 3 and grades 5. So with that said, I think it's really important. It's a really important transition to focus on the tiered one support of education as the most critical part of prevention. A lot of school districts are reaching out to us at that intervention support, but it's really critical that we do the prevention part so that the intervention part is lessened or possibly not even needed. Tobacco use and vaping use should be addressed in some of, if not all, of the existing structures and systems on your campus. As you can see here, this also includes the California Health Standards, which we just looked at, but it can also fit into your PBIS system. It fits into the whole child and even MTSS. Um, This should also be visible in your discipline matrices, your student parent handbooks. This is where you can fit them in if they are not there already. So that brings us specifically to our curricula. We're going to start off looking a little bit at our tiered supports. This is a representation of out of our office some of the supports that we um, suggest at every single level. Today, we're just going to look at that first all students prevention tiered support. Remember that education is the best prevention, right? We want to be able to provide students with this information in the hopes that it prevents them, and we don't really get to that moment of intervention or addiction where students would need cessation. So the first one we're going to look at is Catch My Breath. Catch My Breath was created out of the University of Texas. The program launched in 2016 in response to the boom of e-cigarettes between 2011 and 2015. The developing partners involved in this curriculum have been people who work with the whole child framework, the whole community, and then, of course, their foundation, Catch Global Foundation. A little bit about the program. They do a lot of research and data collection on their curriculums in order to proudly boast that it has been a proven effective. These programs offer robust resources and other pieces that can be used within the school, which will make more sense when we get to those pieces. But one really cool thing about their curriculum is their training and support. They have a lot of training opportunities that come in different levels and different styles in terms of virtual or in person, or they even have a free self-guided training. The Catch My Breath standards or Catch My Breath curriculum aligns to the standards. They align to the National Academic Standards, Common Core, as well as the CASEL standards. But one really great thing is they offer a parent and community section. This section, you can find an introduction letter to parents and guardians that can be used as a template so you can edit it. It also comes in English and Spanish. They also offer a toolkit for parents to learn more about vaping, the risks of vaping, and best strategies for them to talk about their usage or um, resisting usage with their children. There's even videos for parents to watch. So it's not just about sending a letter home to let parents and families know that their students will be learning about this information. It's also a support where parents can also learn about some of these devices in order to know what their students are up against. There is a self-serve downloadable presentation slide with notes for schools to use at maybe like parent meetings, PTAs. These also include videos on what parents should know. There is a crash course on Vaping 101, again, so that parents are aware of what vaping is, how it works, what are the risks. And then, of course, there's other videos, PSA videos, and resources and links for more information. So it really is a place where either parents can get information or schools can support parents in providing them with this information in order to better understand what their students are encountering when it comes to vaping, e-cigarettes, and cannabis. The curricula, each lesson is designed to be age appropriate. So even though it goes from 5 to 12th grade, there are, which we'll look at in just a little bit, there are clusters or sessions of grade levels that are age appropriate for that grade level, right? For instance, I am not going to talk about, cannabis use and all the different types that I would with my 12th graders. uh, I'm not going to use that information with fifth graders, right? And so the information has been designed to be appropriate for the age level, as well as the information that is given, right? The capacity of students learning and what they are retaining at fifth grade is going to be vastly different than what they are retaining in 12th grade. There are some add-ons. They come at a cost, except for the substance misuse prevention. That one is a free add-on. These are just extra add-ons like videos and other resources that can help support the curriculum. And then once again, the training. There are different levels of training, different types of training. The one that you see here is a self-guided asynchronous training that is available for free to assist with the Catch My Breath program. However, they do have options that are paid options for training. For instance, if you want all of your counselors in your school to be trained on this curricula, they do have a system where they will conduct a training just for your school. You would have to reach out to them for that. It is a paid option. But let's take a look at these lessons. In fifth grade, the core curriculum comes in 4 different sessions, as you can see here. These lessons cover everything from general knowledge, the dangers of vaping. It also teaches them coping skills, how to make healthier choices, and how to use information that is available to them to make these choices. All of their lessons come with an overview, key objectives, digital and printable materials and prep. It comes with front loading of key terms, optional extension activities, so that pre and post part of the lesson. Again, all of their lessons are standard aligned. Their lessons come in the form of Google Slides and PowerPoint, so you can use whichever one you feel comfortable with. It also allows you to be able to edit. So you can download a copy of the Google Slides or the PowerPoint. And let's say there is a slide that just feels not age appropriate for your sixth graders because your sixth graders just might not be able to handle that information. You have the ability to either delete that slide or um, change the wording of that slide so they are fully editable. There's downloadable worksheets. So there are homework assignments or even, again, pre and post, like an exit ticket assignments that go with some of these lessons. There are speaker notes. So if the facilitator who's delivering this doesn't feel confident in their own knowledge about vaping or tobacco use, the speaker notes basically give a script where a facilitator, a teacher, whoever is delivering this can feel comfortable giving this information. It's basically like a script. And then there's educator guides. These will provide things like talking points, discussion starters. As you can see here, these lessons provide the facilitator and the school with everything they might need to deliver these tomorrow, in a week, in a month, depending on the level of engagement that you want to provide for the students. At sixth grade, you'll see that the lessons are titled the same exact thing. But once again, these are still adjusted for the age appropriateness. Most schools, I say most, sixth grade is now in middle school, right? And so it's a big jump between fifth grade and sixth grade. So while the sixth grade core curriculum still learning the same things of consequences of using e-cigarettes, making their own choices, the lessons have been adjusted to be age appropriate for sixth graders versus fifth graders. Grades 7 through 8. As you can see, the lessons become a little bit more complex as the grade level increases. So here, 7th through 8th grade are learning how to understand the choices that they'll be making, how the brain is rewired with some of these substances. So now we start to go into in depth into some of the health risks, how students can stand firm on their choices. So giving them those coping skills, those resiliency skills, and then your life and your choice. What are the consequences? What are the repercussions of using? What are the things that are being affected in their life by the choices that they make? Grades 9 through 12, they again, it is going to be a little bit more complex. Here, students are going to be learning about their choices once again, but now they're starting to learn about addiction. What is it? How are they more susceptible to becoming addicted because of their age? How to quit if they already are using, or how to avoid if they haven't tried it yet. And then what is their why? These students, again, 9th through 12th is high school. What is their why? What is going to affect them as young adults? What is going to affect them in their high school lives? Some of them may be athletes, some of them may be, on the basketball team, and these choices really affect the things that they like to do or like to be a part of. Aside from the core curriculum, this program comes with supplements. So again, there are video lessons that do come as a charge, but there are video lessons that you can accompany with some of these lessons. And these supplements are just optional. They are not required. You can totally deliver the core curriculum as is. These are meant and designed to just enhance the program. They have some lessons that pertain to STEM and humanities classes. They have a lesson that can fit perfectly into PE, so it really revolves around the PE standards. There are virtual field trips. The core curriculum does really revolve around vaping, mostly tobacco and nicotine. So, this supplement is a new addition that Catch My Breath, I think, added maybe about a year ago. And they do have a couple of cannabis lessons. So it's specifically just on cannabis and cannabis use risks. And then self-paced modules. So something that you can give a student as an assignment and say, go and complete this assignment on your own. It does not have to be facilitated by a teacher or an instructor. And all of the Catch My Breath lessons are focused on vaping and tobacco prevention. But again, there are cannabis lessons there that you can isolate and use. So for today, we're going to take a quick look at one of these lessons. I've chosen the cannabis lesson for 9th through 12th grade. I feel that that's where we're seeing a lot of the problems in high school already. So we're going to do a quick lesson from this supplemental section. Um, and we're going to start off by looking at what the teachers will be showing. This is the agenda for that. We will not be taking all of that time today to do it, but the lessons are pre-built. They come with presenter points and presenter talking notes. And in this lesson, the instructions start by directing the facilitator to open up and explain to students that this session will give them important information about cannabis. It's going to tell them about the scientific name for marijuana, what they should consider when deciding to use marijuana, and then it they will quickly review the agenda here for the activities of this session. Here, normally you would pass out the provided worksheets to students. For our purposes today, we will be doing utilizing a Zoom poll, which will pop up on your screen in just a minute. But the facilitator would explain that on the left column titled Guess, Students should write a T if they think that the statement is true, or an F if they think that the statement is false. The instructor is directed to make sure to pinpoint that to their students that it's okay if students don't know. It is okay because they haven't learned this information yet. That's why this section is called um, guessing, right? After giving students time to think and record their answers, the lesson begins and lets the students know that they will revisit this worksheet after. So at this time, you all are going to take a couple of minutes to act as our students today and answer these questions from a Zoom poll that is on the worksheet. So let me go ahead and open it up. All right. So there are 6 questions there. Acting as our students today, go ahead and answer those 6 questions as to which ones are true and which ones are false. And let me take a look. Oh, Mark, are you seeing them on your screen?
Yes, I see him.
Awesome. Okay, there we go. Now they're rolling in. Thank you. All right, maybe about 30 more seconds. All right. Go ahead and cast your last votes or poll. And I'm going to go ahead and close or end our poll. And there we go. Okay. So after students have taken our worksheet, what happens next is a group activity. And so here's really where that learning piece comes in. Students will be put into groups. They would get one copy of a handout called The Facts Cannabis Research. And they will take time to read all of that information, learn some facts about cannabis and cannabis use. Um, the facilitator is told to explain that these groups of about 3 to 4 will read this, discuss it, and then complete the column on their worksheet on the other side. So they will answer these questions again and see if they got the true or the false correct. Um, and so let's take a look at some of these. Since we are most likely speaking to the choir today, I'm positive you all did stellar on your worksheet or our poll. But here is where you, the student, would check your answers. So, the facilitator is instructed to call on a group to share their answers for the statement and provide evidence from the research to support their answer. That part is really, really important, right? I was a former history teacher. I'm all about evidence and providing, explanations for your thesis or whatever it is. And so it's not enough just to know that it's true or false. The students or the groups have to provide the evidence as to why their answer was true or false. So here, cannabis use can lead to cannabis use disorder. The correct answer is true. But it doesn't stop there. We talk about why it's true and some facts about that information. About 10 to 30% of people who use cannabis develop cannabis use disorder. People who use cannabis before 18 are 4 to 7 times more likely to develop cannabis use disorder. Nearly half of users had withdrawal symptoms when they tried to stop. Cannabis use disorder just basically means that the user is addicted. And this information might not be something that our young people know. And so this slide provides the class with the answers, but more importantly, it provides them with the reasoning. I like to call this coming with receipts, right? It's not just true. Here is why that statement is true. Number two, cannabis can affect your mental health. Yes, the answer is true. Here are the ways that that can happen. Cannabis has been linked through research to depression, anxiety, paranoia, psychosis. This might even open up a discussion in class because the main thought, not even just among young people, but adults, is that cannabis is like a medicine. It helps depression, it helps anxiety. And what they don't realize is that, yes, in the moment it does, but that's just a band-aid. Once the effects of cannabis wear off, the depression, anxiety, all of that is actually heightened. And the user needs more and more and more of the THC and the CBD in order to fix or help their depression. And so this might be a conversation starter because a lot of the youth that I encounter, um, find this information to be shocking. Students will even sometimes come and ask. I've actually had students come and ask for a friend about the effects of cannabis on these different aspects. And so this might be something that you spend a lot of more time on rather than just moving on and checking on the next question. For our purposes, we're not going to go through every single one of them, but just to check your answers, using cannabis as a teen can cause damage to your brain. Yes, that is true. Cannabis is a plant, so it's harmless. These are things that I hear a lot when I go to events at schools. Um, that is not true. Sure, it is a plant, but it's not harmless. Um, Tobacco is also a plant, right? Opioids are start off as plants, poppy seeds, right? Cannabis is a plant, so it's harmless and it doesn't harm your lungs. That's false, right? It does harm your lungs. Again, if you were at our webinar a couple weeks ago, we talked a little bit about all the different chemicals that the user is inhaling in the aerosol, because it's not a vapor, it's aerosol. And number six, cannabis is legal for kids under 18 to purchase and use. That is false. I would hope that students would know that one and get that one correct. But these are just great examples of how these lessons can also be editable. This slide, I basically deleted all the explanations just because for time purposes for what we're doing today. And I combined about 4 different slides into this one in order to get through them quickly. So again, this is just a great way to show how these lessons can be editable, how you can extend them or even shorten them. You can even, again, I've sometimes had to change the wording to make it a little bit more student friendly for my classroom or my group of students, because I felt like they just weren't going to be able to handle it the way that it's written. And so again, these can be fully editable, or you can fully deliver them without ever touching them because they come ready-made with lessons, scripts, everything that you would need to deliver them on site in the moment. After you've done this with students, the activity is then reinforced with helping students making healthy decisions by going over the benefits of choosing not to use cannabis. So we have a great teachable moment here, right? Let's not lose that momentum. The teacher notes will also give you discussion starters to further this teachable moment. These questions are: how would your life be different if you developed cannabis use disorder? Right? It has the student reflect on how this would affect their lives and the people around them. Another question is: what could happen to your body if you start vaping cannabis, both now and in the future? So it gives them that opportunity to realize that there is a big difference between using as a youth before their brains are done developing, and what that looks like for adults. It's completely different. What would happen if your parents, teachers, police officer, or a sibling saw you using cannabis? And then finally, could using cannabis affect someone's goal in school, sports, and or life, and how? So again, it really gives the facilitator the opportunity to further these discussions, further reinforce what it is that they learned. It also gives the students the opportunity to ask questions, right? They may not know a lot of this information. They may want to ask for a friend, and that's totally fine, right? Because we want the correct information to get to students. And this gives them the opportunity to be able to engage with someone who has the answers, right? Finally, it reinforces it one more time by reviewing the key points of the slide. It ends with some facts and some talking points. So in the teacher notes, the talking points are that most teens your age choose not to use cannabis, which is true. We know that there is a small percentage of teens who use or even used once or twice, but for the most part, most people are not using cannabis. And that goes against this myth that students sometimes think, well, everybody is doing it and I'm the only one being left out. Another talking point is that there are so many benefits to choosing not to use cannabis as a teen, from protecting your brain and mental health, avoiding legal trouble, avoiding addiction, and not risking your health. So it's kind of giving some of the answers to the questions we just asked them before, to make sure that they have the correct information and that they can use that information to make healthy decisions in the future. So that's just a little example of one of the lessons. Again, I shortened it for our purposes today, but you can see how these lessons are developed and structured in order to not only give students the information that they may lack, but then also give the facilitator the ability to be able to reinforce that information, open up discussions, support students in some of their wonderings and confusion, um, and also, again, right, working in groups, problem solving, being able to support and answer with evidence, all of those things that should be happening in classrooms anyways, right? We're going to talk about the Stanford Reach Labs toolkit. Now, this is going to be a little unique because the Stanford Reach Lab has several toolkits. Um, as you saw with Catch My Breath, all of their lessons were primarily based around vaping, which would be nicotine, tobacco use, with a couple of lessons in cannabis use. Stanford Reach Lab has created two separate curriculums, for one called You and Me Vape Free, which is about vaping in general. While they do talk a little bit about cannabis in some of those lessons, it's mostly just about vaping. And then they heard that most students and most schools are having trouble with cannabis more than they were having trouble with nicotine. And so they created Smart Talk, which were lessons solely around cannabis use. The Stanford Reach Lab is led by Dr. Bonnie Halpern Flesher. She runs the research and education program there at Stanford. The development process of these lessons and these curriculums are adopted by community-based participants. So they really give a lot of input from stakeholders such as educators, parents, students. I will even say that when they were creating the Smart Talk curriculum, they tapped into our office and said, "Hey, can you take a look at some of these lessons? What are your suggestions? What are you thinking? What is missing? What needs to be changed?" So they're really, really open to what the need is based off of what teachers and schools and admin and even county offices are seeing, and providing support for some of those things that we're seeing when we work with students. They even have a youth what is it called? They call it their YAB, the Youth Advocacy or Youth Advisory Board, where they have high school and young adults in college who help give information and support on some of these lessons. So they're very, very open to receiving information from all different aspects in terms of parents, students, educators, and then of course professionals from their Reach Lab and research. The first one we're going to take a look at is their tobacco toolkit. And this is the one called You and Me Vape Free. They have two elementary school lessons, which are really great. Here in our 2B unit, we are increasingly getting more and more requests for elementary school level lessons and support. Um, as far as I know, Stanford is probably one of the only curriculums that offer lessons for elementary school level. They have two of them. Again, they are very age appropriate in terms of health promotion. So they don't go into depth like you would with a 12th grade or talking about cannabis addiction, but they do talk about taking care of your body, making sure that you give your body healthy foods and healthy things and keeping unhealthy things out of your body. They also talk about some of those resiliency skills, right? Don't be fooled. Don't be fooled into peer pressure or things like that. You will notice that there are only two lessons, which, again, a lot of our elementary school contacts are looking for more. But this is a great start. The Stanford Reach Lab offers their lessons just like Catch My Breath in different levels. Here you will see middle school and then also high school. Just like Catch My Breath, you will notice that the lessons are the same topics and even with the same titles, but the visual looks different. And that is because the visuals, but also the information is age appropriate. So again, sixth grade versus 12th grade is going to be vastly different in terms of that student's maturity level, and maybe even their retention of information. And so in the high school levels, you will not only see more age appropriate visuals, but you will also see more information being given to students because they are older. One great thing about these lessons, once again, they do come in Google Slides, and they are built on Canva. So you can give these lessons directly from Canva. You don't ever have to download anything, but you can. Just like Catch My Breath, you can download them in a Google Slides, you can download them in PowerPoint, and you can fully edit them if you felt that you needed to. You'll see here that these lessons start with a general overview of e-cigarettes, nicotine addiction, the effects of the health on the body. And then in middle school, you'll see full of potential, your brain and nicotine free. So again, very 101, what is happening to your brain when you use these substances? Healthy body, healthy you. So what are some of the health risks in terms of your lungs, your heart? What is vaping and e-cigarettes doing to the body? This one I really like because I don't think it gets covered a lot. But what a waste impacts of cigarettes and e-cigarettes on the environment. I think sometimes we don't really talk a lot about not only the negative impacts that e-cigarettes have on people, right? But what does it have on our environment? These are not biodegradable. They are hazards. They are susceptible to exploding because of the lithium batteries. These are starting to pollute our oceans, our beaches, our streets, our parks. And so, what does that mean for our environment, especially when some of the substances in them are leaking into the ground or into the gutters in our water systems? Next, don't be played. This is more about the history of marketing strategies and tactics that are used to lure and convince youth. And it also pinpoints the importance of refusal skills. Uh, be be your strength. This is basically stress, coping, and wellness. So, how to find healthier alternatives to vaping. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling depressed, don't turn to vaping. Find other ways, healthier ways to cope with that. And then the last lesson is about cannabis. And what we see a lot in our offices is that school districts will couple these with the cannabis lessons, which we'll go over in a little bit. And this last lesson is really sort of the introduction into the cannabis curriculum. So, what we see a lot of, which is totally an option. It's not a requirement, but we see that this toolkit is used a lot in elementary and middle school. And that last lesson introduces you to the cannabis lessons, which a lot of districts that we work with will use in high school. And so while these are two separate curriculums, we sometimes see that people use them as one full curriculum, and it just progresses through the ages. One other great thing about this is all of these come in Spanish. So everything that is mentioned in the other ones are fully designed and created to be delivered in Spanish, both in elementary, middle school, and high school levels. The other curriculum is centered on cannabis, and this one is called Smart Talk. Another request that we get a lot of is support for cannabis. Um, while vaping is a problem, vaping comes in many different forms, right? It could be nicotine, it could be cannabis, it could even be like essential oils. I've seen vapes that say they have caffeine in them and B12 and all these different things. But what schools are seeing is that um, most vapes that they are confiscating and having trouble with usually have cannabis. And so Smart Talk was really built out of that need to address the cannabis usage. And so this toolkit, just like the last one, includes two lessons at the elementary school level, because unfortunately, while we are seeing vaping being a problem in elementary school, it's not just nicotine. We are seeing cannabis use in those lower grades. We also, once again, have four lessons instead of five at the middle school and high school level. Just like the last one, you will see that these lessons have the same topics, sometimes even has the same titles, but they are built to be age appropriate for that age group. So at the elementary school level, cannabis and your body, once again, are the general information about what cannabis can do to your body. And then cannabis in your community. This is going to cover things like marketing tricks, what they might be encountering on YouTube or social media, the negative effects on their environment and why it's hurting their environment, um, and what it can do to their community, so the people around them, what their usage does to the people that they live with and the friends that they make. Then we have the middle and high school levels. So at those levels, you'll see the full potential for your brain. So we talk specifically about cannabis use on the brain, effects on the body. So again, what does cannabis specifically do to the body? Because remember, while both nicotine and cannabis are not great for your body, they do have different effects. For instance, in this lesson, it does cover that cannabis has a different effect than nicotine. You can actually overdose on cannabis. It looks different than maybe, say, an overdose of other substances. But one of the major problems of cannabis is that students are overdosing and they are what is called greening out. Greening out can be a lot of different things. It can cause uncontrollable vomiting, psychosis. And so those effects are going to be different than, say, the lesson on nicotine health effects on the body. The third lesson is healthy people, healthy communities. So once again, what does this do to their community, to their environment, to the people around them, why they should make healthy choices based off of that. Cannabis industry is misleading youth. Again, the vaping companies are really targeting youth and they don't realize it. They don't know that they're being manipulated. They don't know that they're being targeted. And usually, when young people realize that they are being manipulated, they start to look at this in a different way. And then finally, stress, coping, and wellness, how to cope and how to have healthy decisions that are not turning to cannabis or not turning to vaping. Once again, all of these lessons come in Spanish as well. So they are recreated to be fully in Spanish at all grade levels from elementary school to high school. But just like our last curriculum, the toolkits come with other resources and supports. Stanford Reach Lab offers a parent letter that once again can be fully editable. It comes in both English and Spanish. These are for schools if they need to or want to inform families that students are taking these lessons. Here's what these lessons are about. If you have questions, you can contact the school. It's basically just a template that you can fully edit for your purposes. They come with talking points. So once again, like a script that a facilitator can completely follow and deliver these lessons without any sort of experience or prior knowledge. It is fully deliverable as is. There are also discussion guides, so more resources and more supports in order for the facilitator to make these lessons a little bit more robust. They also come with Kahoot exit tickets or homework assignments, however you want to use it. They offer them in printable versions or they offer the actual link so that students can take a very quick, I think it's something like maybe 5 to 7 questions to kind of reinforce the learning after the lesson. Once again, they come in formats of Canva, PowerPoint, and then Canva will also uh, like translate it into Google Slides. They come with optional activities. So once again, an activity that a class can do before they look at the lesson. So once again, that anticipatory set or front loading before they get to the actual lesson. And if your facilitator really, really doesn't feel comfortable, even though there's talking points and a script and everything, there is a crash course that a teacher, facilitator, counselor, whoever is delivering these lessons can quickly watch or read in order to have a baseline understanding of some of these topics in order to answer questions that students might have. And one really, really great thing about Stanford Reach Lab is their new data dashboard. It's been around for a year. And this is used for every single lesson. And it's for the school district, whoever's use only. So Stanford does not collect this data. It does not collect any private information, names, anything that any student information that is protected. What this does is it provides a pre and a post survey so that you, the teacher, the admin, the whoever is delivering this, can see how effective these lessons are. It asks questions of students about their perceived understanding of tobacco use, vape use, cannabis use. And then it will ask them questions again to see how much they've learned, if it was effective, what it was that students, may have had questions about. And this can be used for a lot of different things, right? Just like we talked about earlier, the Chicks survey can give you an indication of where students are on their understanding. This is really going to, again, just give you an indication on how effective these lessons are or are not, right? And so each one of these lessons will come with a QR code at the beginning and at the end, and students will be asked what grade they're in, what teacher they have. Each teacher will have to register in order to get their own specific code. And then that way, that teacher only has access to those students. No one else has access to those results. But again, it does not ask the student their name. It doesn't ask them where they live. It's just asking them what teacher they have, what grade level they're in, and maybe what period they have that teacher for. So this is a really, really great tool to have and use when it comes to data collection. The Reach Lab also has supplemental lessons as well. Their newest one is the Pride curriculum, which is specifically on the LGBTQ plus community on school campuses. It specifically covers how, again, how the LGBTQ community is a vulnerable community, and tobacco companies know this. They know that they can target this community. They know that this community uses and vapes at a higher rate than their counterparts. And so these lessons come in both middle and high school level. There are 4 lessons. But these other lessons are also available as well. One that is increasingly becoming a concern is probably the smokeless lesson. We are seeing students that are turning to nicotine pouches. So you might be familiar with them as Zins. So there's one lesson there about smokeless tobacco use and nicotine. We also see that there's one on menthol. So again, we talked earlier about equity considerations, and we know that tobacco companies use menthol advertisements specifically targeting the Black and African American community. And so these supplemental lessons can be used in addition to the core curriculum that we just went over. They can be used as standalones, but these are meant to enhance the lessons that we just went over. So lastly, I want to take a look at the Stanford Reach Labs website, because unlike Catch My Breath, the Stanford Reach Lab has a lot of toolkits. We only went over 2 of them, the tobacco and vaping and cannabis. but they also have other ones like their first aid one, which does cover more things other than vaping. It covers things like opioid use and fentanyl. And so this page here actually has a lot of information about everything that they offer. So we're going to do a quick little walkthrough to kind of show you how to navigate their website. So in creating this webinar today, I just found out that these new video series are available. Um, these are quick little videos for elementary, middle, and high school versions. It is called Stay True to You. You can see here that but these are quick videos that you can show before the lesson, after the lesson. Um, it talks about some of what the lessons cover in terms of like information, resiliency skills, decision making. And so these are kind of really great things that you can use. I won't put the sound on because that will be too much. But the animation is meant to engage the students. They cover things like, again, how to stay true to yourself, how to make choices for your health. And again, just a really great resource that you can couple with some of these lessons. Um, Taking while we're here, you can also see that they have other things like box breathing, what the drugs do to the brain. Some of these videos you will find in the lessons. For instance, the lessons of them and these. Uh, to look at is their newsletter. I get their newsletter a lot, and it has a lot of information in here in terms of what is available, what they have coming up. They do a cannabis conference once a year that is very informative. It's also virtual, so you don't have to worry about travel or things like that. But they also keep you up to date on some of the new things coming out. Here is a great rundown of some of their curriculum updates. Just like Catch My Breath, both programs are constantly updating their lessons. New data comes out, new information comes out, even if there's a grammatical error, they will constantly be updating their information. And so this is a great way to keep in touch with knowing how they've updated their curriculums. My Healthy Futures is their intervention program, which if you are coming to our intervention webinar next month, we will cover. But their newsletter is just a great way to um, stay informed, but also enhance the lessons that you may be using or start to use in your schools. It also lets you know of the resources that they have available. So infographics, they have a lot of different things that you can watch or download or pass out. So this is just a really great way to fully utilize what it is that they have to offer. Um, Next, they have free curriculum trainings, which you can find here. All of their trainings are free. All of their resources are free. All of their videos, their curriculum are completely free. If you are interested in training for any of their curriculums, they have them here has preset dates where they train. However, if you are interested in, let's say, once again, just like I said earlier, if you want to train all of your counselors in your school district, you can reach out to the Reach Lab and have them virtually train your counselors for free, and they will adapt that training for your purposes because it's just for your school. But if you want to send a couple people, a couple counselors, one counselor, these trainings are available. We also host trainings out of our unit, which I will share with you at the end of this webinar. But we will be hosting a couple of trainings on the two toolkits that we covered today. But if you are interested in coming to any of their other trainings, for instance, Safety First is more of a health, like nurses, school nurses, or a health class. That's a great training to go to as well. They are all listed here. Just like the Catch My Breath, they do have a parent corner. This is where you can find information in terms of videos, podcasts that parents can stay informed about and learn more about some of these substances and usage so that they can better have conversations with their students. There are infographics. There are different articles and other resources to support parents when it comes to having these conversations with their students. And then finally, the infographics and resources. This one, the schools that we work with love this tab. One of which is because it includes a lot of the infographics, posters, fact sheets that you can download, pass out at your next health fair, your next parent and teacher, appointments. Maybe it's at the next, I don't know, pep rally. These are really, really great to hang in your nurse's office, your health classroom. These are all free. You can download them, print them. They are all free of cost. Ah, curriculum flyers, newsletters, educational videos, they are all available. Um, but in this section, you will also see quitting tips for cannabis. So this is really your third tier cessation. What happens when the students that you are dealing with are not just using, they are addicted and they need support? Um, this is probably the highlight that everybody loves. The cost of vaping calculators or the cost of cannabis calculators. Um, this resource is used in some of the lessons, but it's meant to call to the attention of the student. How much money are you really spending on your vaping or cannabis use? What else could you do with that money if you weren't spending it on your vapes, right? Um, for instance, let's say a vape is $7 and the student is using, I don't know, two vapes in a week. That's $672 a year. What could that student do with $672 each year if they didn't purchase vapes, right? And so this one is embedded into some of the lessons, but it's also just a really great resource to use on its own. There are other ones here that I didn't cover, but the advocacy, so how that youth lab board works, youth corner, so this is their YAB. Everything that you need to know about this organization and the Reach Lab and what they have to offer can be found here. It is ever changing. So again, I just noticed these new video series just maybe a couple days ago. So if this is something that you think you want to use, I would bookmark this page. So that brings us to how do you decide, right? Some of the considerations of these lessons might fit your school district or your school campus better than others. I will say that these lessons, both programs are very, very similar, right? Both of them are standards aligned. Both of them come in formats that can be editable. But very specifically, when you're looking at some of the details, for instance, student age and grade level, Catch My Breath will cover 5th through 12th grade. There are no lessons for elementary school. Stanford Reach Lab, while very limited to 2 per toolkit, they do have elementary school level lessons. So, taking into consideration those small little details and considerations between the two are going to help you make a decision best. Now, do you have to make a decision? No. Some school districts that we work with use both. They sit down and they look at all these lessons and they kind of piecemeal each one of them, or they use all lessons from both programs. What you really need to think about is which would you choose in terms of your scenario? Is this going to be given to a health teacher within the next 2 weeks? Is this going to be for a school program that has mixed grades rather than just one grade? Is this going to be delivered by a high school media teacher who wants a project-based learning rather than just a quick worksheet, right? Which of these is going to work best for your situation? But remember, you can use both. You can mix and match. All of these come with supplemental lessons as well that you can weave into some of these lessons. Um, a lot of them come as modules, but mostly they can be standalone. It really is what is going to work best for your capacity. And again, don't worry if you don't remember all of these. I will be sending these slides to you afterwards so you can look at this comparison sheet again in the future. But when it comes to choosing the right prevention curriculum, you really have to think about what are your students' grade level needs and developmental needs. Prior to doing this work, I was a secondary history teacher for 10 years, and I worked at lots of different schools and school districts. My sixth graders at one school were vastly different than my sixth graders at another school. That can mean that the community was different. It could mean that when I first started teaching, sixth graders were different than when I left teaching 10 years later, right? And so you really have to think about what is it that your students can handle, what their grade level is, what their developmental needs are. Um, my first teaching experience was in a full inclusion school. I had students who ranged from uh, severe, mild mod, typical, gifted. So, what lessons were going to really be beneficial for me given the vastly different students that I had in my classroom? How much class time or advisory time can you dedicate to this prevention lessons? Are you going to do this in health class? Is it going to be in homeroom, which is only 30 minutes? Um, Depending on where it fits, that's really going to take into consideration which lessons you use. Can you integrate these into your existing classes? Don't reinvent the wheel. Maybe these lessons can fit perfectly into health class, PE class, history class, right? Even civics and government, when we're talking about health advocacy and health promotion. Do your teachers have experience facilitating interactive, student centered? These are really things to think about when it comes to choosing the right curriculum. Are you looking for something that is structured or flexible? What technology resources do you have? Catch My Breath does have digital and printable worksheets. Stanford Reach Lab is mostly digital. Even their Cahoots is mostly digital. And how are you going to provide the support? Is it going to be, are there going to be follow-ups? Are you going to do an evaluation? Are you going to utilize the database that Stanford Reach Lab offers for free? How are you going to continue this work? Which brings us to our last part, the implementation and application. We first need to acknowledge the challenges when it comes to adopting these curriculums. A lot of times, and don't get me wrong, I've been that teacher that has been voluntold, right, to implement a new program, a new thing. A lot of times we get some challenges and pushback. There's not enough time. I don't know where to fit this. The facilitators or teachers don't feel confident in their knowledge about vaping or health promotion. The students, they're not going to care. They're going to be disengaged. But we need to address these, right? If there's not enough time, there are standalone lessons. You can also integrate these into your health framework, which we talked about earlier. Some of these lessons come with supplemental lessons that you can fit easily into ELA, PE, health, even humanities and history class, or even civics and government. If there's lack of confidence, you start with the scripted activities. All of these curriculums come with word for word scripts that somebody could read. Is that going to be most effective? Maybe not, but it's a starting point, right? Um, you can also have facilitators co-teach with somebody else, maybe even the health teacher or the school nurse. You want to be able to use peer-led activities so that there is engagement. Media analysis, advocacy projects, maybe this is going to be in conjunction with the student body, right? Those student leaders on campus. And then, yeah, there are competing priorities, but remember that we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. We can align these to our California Health Education Framework, our SEL standards, even Common Core, which we'll get to a lesson in just a little bit, but Common Core does require media literacy, and some of these lessons have that. When it comes to classroom tips, we want to make sure that we build rapport with our students. Students are much more open when they trust the person, the teacher, the facilitator. We want to keep it relevant, connecting vaping risks to things that students care about. The student who is on the volleyball team, do you know how vaping is affecting your performance? Vaping can affect the way you breathe, your lungs. You don't want to do that if you're the star baseball player, basketball player, right? Grades. How is it affecting grades? How's it affecting mental health? Money. We looked at the calculator. How much money are you spending on these things, and what else could you do with that money? Use interactive learning, discussions, role playing, problem solving activities. The one that we did for Catch My Breath was very engaging. It asked students to problem solve, to find answers and support those answers with evidence. Normalize refusal skills, provide frequent opportunities to practice saying no and different ways to say no. Some of those videos that I just showed you actually gives students ways to say no, whether that means changing the subject, stating they have something else they need to do and they need to leave. There's different refusal skills that students can use. And then model healthy behaviors. Educators set a tone throughout their language and their actions. Prevention works best when it's interactive. We also know that the scare tactics of the just say no era didn't work. So, using some of these tips will help be able to deliver these lessons with fidelity. But I really, really want to touch on framing our discussions. I want to begin by saying that it's really important to frame these discussions properly. When we're speaking about young people, it's important to recognize the context of those students' lives. As we saw earlier, students are turning to vaping as a form of self-medicating, and in order to deal with whatever they're going through, we need to be able to understand that their usage has something to do with whatever is happening in their. And because we need to focus on the goal to enable youth to make healthy decisions based on factual and accurate information. This is right or wrong. It's not about morality. It's about health decisions, and it's not about the adults in their lives. We need to make sure that we're not accidentally convenience store, they might work at a gas station or a dispensary, and we don't want to unintentionally shame these students for that. So we need to be able to differentiate between the industry and the industry. People who are just trying to make a living is different than these large companies and manufacturers who are weaponizing these products to create addiction and target young people for a profit. So we always need to focus on youth and healthy decisions. So with youth, we have to address the resistance and the myths. Some of the myths we want to talk about vaping with students. We often hear pushback like it's just flavoring or everyone's doing it. And we know that that's not true. So we need to validate and don't dismiss. We need to acknowledge their perspective. We also need to use facts and friendly student language, right? Again, we want to give them the facts to make the decisions for themselves. Also, address common myths like vaping isn't bad as smoking. Well, they both damage the brain. They both have unique risks. So that's not true. Or it's just vapor, water. That's not true. It actually provides or creates an aerosol, right? And so we need to be able to have our students understand that these are myths. Once again, everyone's doing it. That's actually not true. The statistics and the data tell us that that's not true. We also need to encourage peer-to-peer voices. Students listen to students more than they do adults. This might mean that you really want student youth advocacy groups on your campus, and that would be great. We want to make sure that we are extending these beyond one lesson, right? A single lesson has limited impact. We want to make sure that we are reinforcing some of these learning points. We need to empower parents as well with the knowledge so that they can back up this prevention message at home. We can do that by providing take home resources, hosting parent nights, having a table outside of the back to school night. We can share tips with them. Sometimes schools have coffee with the principal. We need to partner with parents and caregivers to continue this work. We also want to go beyond the classroom. So, once again, peer to peer influence is key. Encourage schools to use to be student advocates. Sometimes we've even seen groups of high schoolers going to the elementary and middle schools to do this work on their campuses. Finally, partnering with local communities and organizations. We partner with DPH, but there's other organizations given where your school and school district is in order to help do this work as well. So, one mindful moment to just think about is what's one school wide strategy you can realistically try this semester, right? How are you going to start this work beyond one lesson? We also want to be able to continue this work. So, we talked a lot about data earlier and data collection. Data tells story. Administrators respond really, really well to numbers and trends. You can look at student surveys like CHICS, again, the National Youth Tobacco Survey that we covered earlier, the California Youth Tobacco Survey. You can even create your own survey if you're not using the Stanford's Reach Labs data collection. You can do exit tickets to show how these lessons are impacting student usage or student vaping usage on campus. You can encourage small, quick data tools. It could be a Google form, it could be an exit ticket. You want to be able to measure learning outcomes, right? Pre and post surveys, maybe thumbs up, thumbs down, see where students are before and after the lessons. You want to do continuous improvement. Maybe in the first year, you are delivering these lessons as is, but by year 2, 3, or 4, you have taken these lessons and you've edited them and you've made them more robust and more editable or appropriate for your students. Also, you want to share the data, right? You want to share your successes with principals, with parent groups, with school boards. How are these lessons working on your campus? And how are you collecting that data? We want to make sure that you are implementing this as well. Adoption is fine, but adoption just means that a school or a school district has just chosen a curriculum to use. But to implement it, you want to be consistent. You don't want to do a one off lesson. Okay, I did my due diligence. We covered vaping. We're done, right? It's not going to stick. The information's not going to stick with students that way. You want to be able to implement because students learn best when these activities are consistent, when they're connected to their real lives, and when they're being exposed to it often. Because we know in the real world, they're being exposed to vaping and smoking in social media and movies and in their everyday lives. And we need to be able to combat that in their classrooms. Some strategies to use for engagement is to make it interactive. Connect with students' interests. Again, the students who are on the sports team, the students who may not realize that they're spending hundreds of dollars on vapes. Use peer voices, normalize students that most students don't vape. Really quickly, we're going to do a quick demonstration. What I want you to do is take a moment and look at this ad. This is a quick activity that you can run in your own classroom tomorrow with little to no prep. This is pulled right out of the type of strategies that are used in the Stanford Toolkit. The goal is to help students see through tactics of vape companies that are used to grab their attention. So take a quick moment, look at this ad as if you were one of your students. Don't overthink it. Just notice what jumps out at you and type it in the chat. It could be a word or it could be a phrase. What comes to mind when you see this ad just very quickly, just very quickly? What comes to mind when you see this? Willy Wonka. I love that one. Candy, sugary treats. Yes. Yes. Colorful, friendly, kind of fun and inviting, right? Aesthetically pleasing. Yes. Very misleading and sad. Yeah. Yeah. So very just like surface level, right? Colorful, fun, friendly, candy, sugary. Notice those themes that you just named. The bright colors, the sleek design. These are deliberate tactics. Vape companies know that teens are drawn to candy flavors, social media aesthetics, right? I am a 90s kid. We didn't have the internet for the first part of our childhood, right? We didn't know what influencers were and aesthetics and things like that. Our students today do. So they know they can read colors and all the aesthetics and advertisements because that's what they encounter every day. But the thing that's missing from this ad is there's no mention of nicotine or chemicals or health impacts. That is intentional. By surfacing these gaps, you're helping students build media literacy, the skill of asking, what am I really being sold here? What are they telling me and what are they not telling me? Now, this advertisement was AI generated by me on Canva. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to show you that you can do it one of two ways. You can create something like this. I gave Canva the image and said, create an advertisement for me. And this is what it came up with. But if you want to stay true to advertisements, there are plenty of them out there that you can just Google and use. These images would have worked just as well. The only thing that I'm concerned about is the brand names. I'm not here to sell these products to students, right? If you can find a way to maybe cover the brand names or blur them out, that might work. If you think your students can handle them with the brand names, that is up to you. But you can do this one of two different ways. You can find actual advertisements that are used, or you can create one. But you notice here that this is the same thing. Colorful, friendly, fun, looks kind of sweet and sugary, right? Very few of them have a warning sign. And even those warning signs are hard to find. For instance, the bottom right hand, the warning sign is small. You could barely read it. And this gives great discussions for students of why is the most important part of this advertisement so small and obscure, you can totally miss it. What are these companies trying to do, right? So that's just an example of another lesson that you could use very quickly. Um, you could use it tomorrow, right? There's little to no prep. But remember that you want to make sure that you're adapting for different settings. I may not use that with my fourth graders, right? I might use it with my high school students, maybe upper middle school students. You want to make sure that things are adaptable and appropriate for the group, for the age group. So again, is it middle or high school? Is this an alternative or continuation school? Is this an after school program where again, you might have lots of different age groups in one class? And that really plays a role. Another mindful moment, think about your specific setting. What's one strategy from this slide that you think would work best with your students? Again, that could be an after school program, that could be a health class. What would work best for your setting? In our last maybe 10-ish minutes are my favorite part, the resources and all the free things that we have to offer you. In your next steps, you want to make sure that you start small, right? Especially if this is not something that you're already doing on your campus. Pick one lesson or one unit and grow from there. Start simple and expand over time. Find places to put this. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. These can fit in your existing structures like SEL, PBIS, health class, health promotion. Build a support from colleagues and administrators. Share success stories with colleagues, admin, even your PTA, and continue to access ongoing PD and support. And that's really where we come in. Our resources that we have available come from CDE 2P's program. We also have the 2P California statewide website where you can find a lot of resources. But for LA County, our unit provides trainings. We provide free materials. We provide guidance. We also provide confiscation bins, which is new, and we'll go over that in just a second. But also tap into your local public health agencies. Um, Additional supports might look like family engagement materials, which we do have. We also have Kira, who is our family engagement senior program activity specialist, who does that work here in our offices. We continue to have professional learning opportunities, so please take advantage of those. And we also offer technical support. Specifically, we offer things like signage for your campuses. We offer presentations for your staff, your parents, your students. We also have a catalog where you can order free educational materials if you are having a parent night, a back to school night. We have posters, we have pamphlets, and we also have trainings. I believe Mark should be dropping a lot of these links in the chat. We have a training hub where all of our trainings are available for free. Go ahead and bookmark that because we are constantly updating and adding more trainings as the school year progresses. This is what it will look like. Again, notice all of those words free there. I know educators love that word. But more specifically, we have a training coming up in October about the tier two part, the intervention part. We will go over some of the programs of intervention, but we will also go over what some schools that we work with are doing with those programs. So we'll cover some promising practices and we'll cover some of the programs that we suggest, just like we did today. Lastly, I want to introduce you all to a new resource out of our office. We are offering vape device confiscation bins. We hear a lot from educators that they are confiscating these items, but they don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to handle them. They're carrying them around in their pockets all day. And so this is really a resource given to schools in order to help with that. Each bin will include what you see here on the screen. There is a one pager there that explains the safe way to confiscate and dispose of these devices. But a little bit of a disclaimer, these are available exclusively to public LEAs in LA County. It will be available to those LEAs that serve grades 6 and above. And you do need to be a tobacco-free certified school. So if you think that you are, or you think that you might be, you can contact us. These vape devices are really meant to give guidance on how to safely uh, confiscate devices, where to store them away from students, um, what things that you can put in the bins. But the second part of this is there is an optional survey included with these bins. This is really meant for our offices to collect data specifically on vape devices. It has no, we ask for no information about your students, about your specific school. We are specifically just looking for which vape devices are being confiscated most frequently? What are some of the most popular brands? What age groups are these vape devices being confiscated from? Um, but if you are interested, we have a link here that I think is probably, yep, is in the chat. If you are not sure if you are a tobacco-free certified school district, you could fill out this form and we will contact you to let you know if you are eligible or if you are not currently up to date on your certification, we can help you be certified so that you can be eligible for these vape device or vape confiscation bins. With that said, I want to thank everyone for being here, being with us for 2 hours. I would really appreciate it if you can take that survey. We're going to drop the link in the chat, or you can also scan it, the QR code on the screen. If you have any questions or if you are looking for support, our contact information is there for you. But I want to be able to honor your time. Thank you so much for being here. We will stick around to answer any questions you may have. But other than that, I hope you have a great day.